Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another race preview. It's been a week's gap because we had a week's gap just to kind of take a breather, kind of come up for some air. But racing is back again this weekend.
Oh yeah.
And
it's been too long.
I did. Far too long. Oh, how do we cope 7 months? We keep saying that. But anyway, we're here for the race preview of Silverstone. What a race to kind of start this, a double header of races to start this block of 3.
Yeah, quality. Looking forward to it.
The race last year was epic. It was a really great race last year for on-track battles. It was some brilliant stuff. That is for sure. So if you are new around here and don't know what our previews are, well, first of all, if you have the time and just want to, drop us a subscribe if you like the content we produce. But what we do here on an F1 Fanatics race preview is we'll start off with some stats, but we're changing it up. It's kind of stats and fun facts with Jonty James, who kind of follows us on Twitter and is providing. We'll have 10 kind of stats and fun facts per race we go from. So this is the first one up, so we'll go through those to kind of start off as well. Then we go into Mike's amateur lap of Silverstone. Then we will do a kind of a 5-point review of the previous year's race, and it was hard to probably contain it to 5 with the action that happened last year. Then we'll actually kind of preview the race and look ahead to who we think are going to do well and the kind of stuff to expect, as well as rounding off with those 3 bold predictions as a fun way to round off the race preview. So make sure you kind of hang around to see what kind of crazy predictions me and Stephen come up with this week. And they're usually mad. But let's get into those stats to start off with. So I'll leave them up on screen for you. So stat number 1. Mark Webber's not bad for a number 2 driver came from Silverstone. The reason, as we all know, is due to Red Bull changing parts on his car, favouring his teammate of the time, Sebastian Vettel. Funnily enough though, the same thing happened with Nigel Mansell, the British driver, some 30 years earlier at the same race. Interesting one to start off with. But going into number 2.
In 2000, the British Grand Prix was moved to the 4th race of the season, which was an Easter Sunday and won by David Coulthard by 1.5 seconds.
Stat number 3 is this version of Silverstone is the 9th version of the circuit's history.
In 2014, Valtteri Bottas started 14th and eventually came home in 2nd. That was Valtteri at Williams. Not too shabby.
Very impressive. Shows that he is a good driver and not just a number 2. Lewis Hamilton has won 6 times at Silverstone, which is a record, and who wouldn't put it past him to make it 7 this year? Despite
17 attempts, Jenson Button never won at his home circuit.
Poor Jenson. World champion though still, isn't he?
Yeah.
There has been 11 different winners of the British Grand Prix just this century.
Mercedes won 5 Grand Prix in a row. 1 for Nico Rosberg and 4 for Lewis Hamilton.
Silverstone is situated in 2 counties.
As a team, Mercedes have won 5, but as the Mercedes engine has won 10 races this century.
There you go. Some very interesting stats and from the British Grand Prix over the years. And yeah, obviously we're going to have 10 more stats about Silverstone next year. Thank you very much for Jonty for coming forward and providing those for us. And obviously, you know, it's something fun to kind of start off the preview each weekend. But now we move on to a bit. You've heard some facts about Silverstone. You probably know what Silverstone is as a circuit, but the best way to really know a track is by a virtual lap. And so, it is time for Mike's amateur lap.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Who's jumping in the car this time?
Well, I think it probably has to be Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton. I don't know actually. Maybe, because I haven't recorded it yet, maybe it would be enough to have the kind of update of the black Mercedes in there as well.
Maybe.
That would be very interesting to see. But with the British Grand Prix, it had to be Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton driving the lap. Although it will nowhere be near as good as that. But anyway, enjoy Mike's Amateur Lap. Hi guys, and welcome back to another Mike's Amateur Lap. We are at Silverstone, our home Grand Prix. We would have been here this year, but unfortunately, you know, with the coronavirus, with no fans at Grand Prix, we will have to wait until 2021. But anyway, across the line to start the lap, it is a running into turn 1, and it is flat out through turn 1. And honestly, we are in the black Mercedes, and it feels so easy to take that corner flat out. Then we go into the corner of 3, round into 4, getting nice and tight with the apexes out of turn 5. Coming up here and into the first DRS zone onto the Wellington Straight. Then into 6 and 7 into Brooklands and Luffield. Should be closer to the apex there. And then it is proper throttle control, taking it nice and easy, getting the right point to accelerate out of the corner, and then onto the old National Pit Straight. Obviously the start of the National Circuit setup. Then Copse used to be the old one, can't take it quite flat out, but you're still just a little bit of braking to make sure that you make the corner through there. And then into everybody's favourite section, driving on the game of Silverstone, is Maggots and Beckett's. A fantastic set of corners of high speed and really having to nail the line to be quick and through there. I did alright for once, going through there. Then round into turn 9. Kind of easy braking into there before coming into the last sections of turn 16 and 17. Round turn 18 for the last corner across the line. That is another Mike's Amateur Lap. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll be back next week for another Silverstone lap. And there you go, there you have it, another Mike's Amateur Lap. One of my favourite tracks to drive. It's just the way that the corners go together, it's just such a fun track to drive.
It is great. It's great.
And I hope you've enjoyed your kind of Mike's Amateur Lap. But now we're going to go back a year to 2019 and talk through our flashpoints, our top 5 moments from the 2019 British Grand Prix. So starting off with number 1 was actually a race for the lead, and fingers crossed, you know, we hope that we get the same from Valtteri and Lewis this weekend, as we've already discussed that Mercedes seem so far ahead of everyone else. I doubt Red Bull have somehow managed to bridge some sort of gap in that time. So we hope for it again this weekend. But it was brilliant wheel-to-wheel action between the Finn and the British driver. And, you know, Valtteri actually came out on top on it and only really fell behind in strategy that favoured Lewis Hamilton. I think he benefited from the safety car brought out from Giovinazzi's retirement within the race. So, yeah, it was a fantastic battle, and I hope we have more great wheel-to-wheel action with them this year.
Number 2 is Charles versus Max. The epic battle.
The rematch, essentially.
Yeah, after Austria, before Monza. They didn't really fight Monza, but Leclerc was going elbows out at Monza. Doesn't matter. Silverstone, they were fine. It was great on-track entertainment from them both. Some great overtakes, great defending. It was only really disrupted by the other Ferrari, which leads us on to highlight number 3.
Yes, and not a highlight for Sebastian Vettel. Now, it had, like Stephen said, been a race dominated by the fight between the 2 young superstars in Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen on track. Wheel-to-wheel action, brilliant to watch. And then Max Verstappen, he got overtaken by Sebastian Vettel, but then overtook Sebastian Vettel back. Sebastian wasn't happy with this. No. What did Vettel do? Unfortunately, Vettel missed his braking point and just went lock up and would have been in a car just like going,
uh-oh.
Yes. Yes, exactly that. Uh-oh. Bang. Punted it off. But it made such a hilarious incident because both drivers went on to finish that race.
Yeah.
Somehow. And literally, Vettel punted Max in midair. He went over the curb and got some serious air time, I think, on it. But both finished the race. Compare that to, say, maybe Brazil later on in the season, where it's just a tap of wheels. And
both Ferraris out.
Yeah, just went there. It proves how kind of strange and unlucky sometimes you can be with contact on this, or lucky in this case for there. But yes, not Sebastian Vettel's finest moment. Point 4.
Highlight 4 is midfield action. And in particular when the safety car came out after Giovinazzi bunched everyone up. Everyone was fine. Renault's, Racing Points, and McLaren's. Nearly forgot about them. Even Alex Albon in the AlphaTauri was getting involved. I think Checo lost a front wing. Great midfield action throughout the entire race. Lots of little fights going on.
Yeah, I think it kind of... That season was epitomised by... Although obviously things at the front, you know, Mercedes were still out in terms of there. When you go lower into the field, 2019 was an absolute brilliant season for kind of midfield fighting and kind of change up of positions. And Silverstone was one of those races where it was highlighted. There was some great... It just provides great racing action, Silverstone. It's a brilliant track and cannot wait for it this Sunday as well. And we had two of them this year.
Two of them.
So how good is that? But yeah, Silverstone, what a track it is. But point 5, the man who won the race himself, last lap, gets fastest lap. Lewis Hamilton just on used hard tyres. I think Valtteri Bottas had pitted for fresh softs to try and get the fastest lap, and somehow he then does that. It just... Silverstone and Lewis Hamilton, it's a match made in heaven, and it really is a kind of personal and emotional race, I think, for him. He's really passionate at winning his home race. It really means a lot to him to win this race. And he is, like we had in the stats from Jonty, he's the most successful driver there, and you fully expect him to probably extend that to 7 this weekend.
Yeah.
Which probably moves us on nicely to the race preview, or kind of looking ahead to this Sunday's action, and basically going, do you see anyone other than Mercedes?
Nope.
Okay, there we go. That's ticked off. Race over. Mercedes won. Lewis Hamilton, congratulations. Do you see, obviously Valtteri Bottas got stitched up by strategy last year. Do you see Valtteri Bottas genuinely challenging Lewis this week?
Nope.
Okay. I mean, that was shut down. I mean, I think if Valtteri, like I think we've been saying it before, if Valtteri is going to mount any sort of a serious title challenge this season, he needs to win at least one of the Silverstones and finish no lower than 2nd in both.
Yeah, that is the thing. There's going to be, if he's going to reach any kind of peak drive to win the World Championship, it's got to be here. You've got to win the first Silverstone. If you don't win this Silverstone, I doubt he wins next Silverstone. The second race. So he's got to lay down the marker and win the Silverstone.
Absolutely. It is definitely a key one in the championship fight this weekend. And it feels weird to be saying that 4 races in. But it definitely does feel like a...
It could be half the calendar.
It could be. But yeah, it definitely does feel like a key race for Valtteri Bottas this weekend. Other than that, below, I suppose we then go on to Racing Points and Red Bulls. Who's going to come out on top out of those two?
Red Bull. Max Verstappen.
Do you think both cars will beat both Racing Points?
You'd like to think so. But yeah, Racing Points... Stroll drove a very solid race, but he was still 20 seconds off the bow for 2nd and 3rd. So there's still that clear race pace advantage for Red Bull. So if Albon gets a good start, qualifies better than he did in Hungary, he should finish above the Racing Points. But we'll see.
I suppose what I was probably basing it on unlike Hungary, you know, where it was a more downforce, it technically should have benefited the Red Bull more. I thought the Racing Point as a whole package looked stronger in Austria, and there are more longer straights, I would say, in Silverstone, and I think they've got a power unit advantage over the Red Bull. So obviously Checo started 17th and almost caught Alexander Albon in the steering GP. It's potentially one from there, but I think Max Verstappen, barring any kind of mechanical malfunctions or crashes or anything like that, I think he's got that last place on the podium nailed down.
Yeah.
From there, and then the midfield is a wonderful... Don't know what's going to happen. Where are Ferrari going to be? Where are McLaren going to be? Are their race pace going to be more better with Austria than it was in Hungary? Is Daniel Ricciardo going to do well? Finish kind of top of that kind of group of people, because he's had a kind of, well, in the last 2 races, obviously retired, not his fault in the first race, had a very strong performances in those. Who's going to come out on top in that kind of midfield action?
Yeah, it's interesting. I fancy Ricciardo because McLaren's, I still don't know what their true race pace is. Austria, they benefited of incidents, but they were there to benefit. Hungary, they were nowhere. Silverstone, they're bringing upgrades, but so are Renault. So, I don't know. I fancy Ricciardo to be best of the rest behind the Racing Points.
Very interesting. I wouldn't put it past him. He, for me, other than obviously Lando Norris has been fantastic in his performances, but Daniel Ricciardo, for me, has been the form driver in that midfield. I think he really has, especially if you compare it to teammate Esteban Ocon, some really kind of standout performances in that. And I suppose the only other real thing to kind of look at is, you know, who will be that team competing? Will Haas be fighting AlphaTauri?
Maybe.
Because their race pace has looked quite good, and if Kevin Magnussen, it'd be interesting this weekend to see if everything goes fine, where will they actually be? Because we're anticipating they're not going to have an absolute masterstroke of a strategy call like they did in Hungary.
If Haas beat AlphaTauri, I think that's a massive achievement for them.
I would say no.
I think AlphaTauri are favourites for that fight, but if Haas beat them, yeah.
I think it will be Gasly versus Magnussen in terms of it. Kvyat may be there in terms of it, but if he's going to beat it, well, hopefully poor Pierre Gasly has a weekend where
he can finish a race.
Yeah, he doesn't have massive reliability issues throughout, which I don't think he's had a race yet where he hasn't had some sort of mechanical issue on his car. And then at the back, can Williams improve their race pace? I suppose that's the only other one, because they've been qualifying very well. Can they get both into Q2 again?
Maybe.
I think they do actually look, and the way that Russell is driving that car, it seems so kind of glued to him, especially in Hungary. They have a power unit in Mercedes that should be able to take advantage in terms of there. If they can get the setup right and find a way to transfer that clear one lap and qualifying pace into race pace, maybe they're involved in that Haas and AlphaTauri fight.
Yeah.
It would be interesting in Alfa Romeo, I guess.
Kimi's confident of breaking the point stack. Can he do it?
He said that?
He said that. He's confident of breaking the point stack.
I mean, Kimi Räikkönen, low-key here, has been driving brilliantly this season, but because he's been so far at the back in the car, beneath him has been awful, it hasn't really been seen. But he's had like great starts. He's had some great overtaking action throughout the season. His race start, even last week at Hungary, was fantastic as well. I think it was on F1 clips, you know, when they usually do top 10 clips of the race, because they go, quick, let's hold back some good action so we have something to release on YouTube afterwards. But yeah, Kimi, I think if anyone in that Alfa Romeo seat is going to get points this weekend, it's going to be Kimi. Because Gio only really got points because he benefited from mass retirements.
Yeah. And I think they're going to need that again if they're going to score points.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that front.
Pace is not there. Yeah.
No, those Ferrari-powered cars are really suffering on that front. But we'll round off the preview with predicting our podium. I imagine we're probably... I think 2 out of 3 races we've predicted the same podium. Again, we haven't spoken about this, so I go from there. But Stephen, what's your podium?
Lewis, Max, Bottas.
Oh, it is different. Lewis, Bottas, Max. Go from there. And I think it is going to be pretty much all season some iterations of that. Max is now, he's performing on some level above of everyone else in that pack. And Charles Leclerc, the one he was fighting with last year, is in a car that's so far behind the Red Bull that it's difficult too. But that might change through the season. But I think the majority of the season we're going to be looking at Max, Bottas, Lewis, some form of combo on the podium.
Yeah.
Unless obviously we have chaos, which is always fun, which might go. Which chaos brings us on nicely to round off this race preview with our 3 bold predictions. So, Stephen, do you want to go first this time? Oh, bang, straight
I'm still going for first corner incident. I still haven't got it. The first corner at Silverstone, there's been a few incidents there. It's kind of it's not a sharp one, so it's a bit easier to get around it. But first corner incident, 6 car power up. All down. 6 cars out.
Crazy.
Actually, 2 of them can keep going.
I think turn 3 is more likely, isn't it? Because it goes 1, 2...
Stop trying to hijack.
Sorry?
I'm going first lap incident.
First corner. First corner incident. Just going from there.
Yep.
My first one's going to be nice and easy in terms of George Russell will score points in his home Grand Prix this weekend. It's a bold prediction because that Williams race pace is so poor, but if he can somehow find performance in it and maybe benefit from a few things, I'm backing George to get his first points in Formula 1.
Excellent. I'm going to go for, I think the weather forecast is fine. But bam, we're in Britain, it's going to rain, and it's going to be sunny, and then it's going to rain again, it's going to be sunny, and there's going to be a record number of pit stops for changeable conditions.
I mean, you heard it here first.
Bam.
Mental pit stops. What was the record pit stops? Is it still Donington?
It probably is.
In 1993, that was mental in terms of it. People making like 6 and 7 pit stops. I think was it Prost made 6? I think it was.
Yeah,
it might have even been 7, but yeah. I mean that would be very entertaining. A bold prediction. I'm going to go for. Midway through the race, there is going to be a safety car which will affect, and Mercedes won't come out on top of it. They'll stay out on something and they'll get their strategy call wrong, which will lead Max Verstappen to winning the British Grand Prix.
Oh my God.
It has to be as a result of a mid-race safety car. Mercedes don't pit. Red Bull nail the strategy, Max Verstappen wins.
Oh, can't wait. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to happen, right? Tell me it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, Stephen. It's going to happen.
My final bold prediction, like a continuation from last week, well, 2 weeks ago, I wanted fight night between Albon and Gasly. Gasly was on fire. But he was literally on fire, and so fight night was cancelled. This time, fight night, Ocon versus George Russell for the Mercedes seat, 2022. Boom, Russell wins, beats Ocon in the race.
Jeez, look, we're going very heavily on this. And to round it off, bold predictions for you know, the British Grand Prix, we've got to back one of the British drivers because it wouldn't be bold to do anything around Lewis Hamilton. He's the one British driver you expect and think he's going to do well. I've already had one with George Russell getting into points. Stevens had one just there with George Russell coming out on top against Esteban Ocon. Lando Norris, he's getting another podium, but it's not just a P3. He's going to get a P2 this time.
P2?
P2. Max Verstappen first, Lando Norris P2, and George Russell P3. No, sorry. I won't get too carried away. Lewis Hamilton P3 in terms of that. But Lando Norris is getting another podium for the British Grand Prix.
Does he go on the last lap?
Well, of course it has to be. Last lap Lando,
Where does he start the last lap?
He starts the last lap 20th. What a lap!
What he does is drives across the start line, reverses, and then drives across it again.
Yeah.
Bam, P2.
Yeah. Yeah, that could work. No, he starts P3 and I say Lewis has a penalty for some sort. No, I won't.
Penalty.
If it was better or heads.
It feels better.
Sorry, Seb. That's there. Not scenes back to 2011 Canada.
Prediction.
Button! He's won! So yeah, Lando Norris, he's going to finish P2 in the British Grand Prix. And that rounds up the bold predictions. We hope you've enjoyed that. Obviously, with the British Grand Prix, we had to give some bold predictions favoured towards the British drivers in there. But next week, we'll go for some kind of more international bold predictions.
Yeah.
Where we go on there. But we hope you've enjoyed the new edition of the Stats with Jonty. Thank you very much again for coming up with those for us at the start. We hope you've enjoyed the rest of the preview. Let us know your kind of podium predictions, your bold predictions, and just kind of generally chatting what you think might happen in this Sunday's race on Action. And I mentioned it at the start, but if you are new around here or haven't done so already, Stephen, what can they do?
You can like, you can subscribe, and you can ding that bell.
Ding that bell. But that's it from us today, guys. We hope you've enjoyed the race preview. Enjoy the action on Sunday. Obviously, keep up with us all with our live streams with the weekly news show on Friday, qualifying live reaction Saturday, race live reaction on Sunday, and of course the driver ratings with a special guest on Monday and Tuesday as well, rounding up the action with the Race Review podcast. So that's it from us. I've rambled on long enough. Stephen wants me to stop now, so for now, you F1 fans, keep racing!